All right, excellent. So can I just say, how long has this been? We've been doing Zoom and I'm still struggling. I don't know what that says about me, but one moment. Okay. All right. So now we should be recording. Now we are. Okay, so again, my name is Alfred Ave. I'm the Director of Admissions here at Columbia Climate School. And joining me today is Emily Bickle, who is a recent alum of the MA in Climate and Society program. I'm going to allow Emily to introduce herself, but before we do, I just want to go briefly over the agenda. We're going to be discussing today Columbia Climate School as a whole and how it fits within kind of the fabric of Columbia University. We're also going to be discussing our current learning community, so what our incoming student profile for the fall of 2022 looked like. We'll also go into a deep dive of the curriculum, also discuss the final semester, which is our summer internship and our capstone. A lot of students like to understand how those concepts that you're learning in the classroom can be transformed live in an internship or capstone. We'll also detail professional development opportunities both in Columbia Climate School and as a whole at Columbia University. And then I'm going to cap it off with the ever so riveting and important, of course, financial aid and application process. And before I turn it over to Emily, again, just as a friendly reminder, if everybody joining the session today could mute themselves just to make sure we don't have any feedback going on in the background, that would be phenomenal. So now let me go ahead and turn it over to Emily.
Thanks, Alfred. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Emily Bickle. I'm a recent graduate. I graduated in 2020 from the MA program in Climate and Society. And then since then, I've been working for an organization called C40 Cities. So it's basically just an organization that works with cities and city governments on implementing climate policy and climate initiatives. And so I've been with them for the last 2.5 years since graduating pretty much, and started with them during the summer program, which I think will kind of come up later. But it's nice to meet you all. I'm happy to have you all here.
Thanks, Emily. So moving right along now, let's talk a little bit more about Columbia Climate School. And before we go into detail on that, what I'd like to do is, oh my, you know what, something, just throwing this out there, we're real cash here. And by we're real cash, I'm real cash. If everybody wants to go ahead and type in the chat box, I usually do that from the top. If everybody can type in the chat box where they're joining us from, that would be phenomenal. Sometimes it's nice just to get a better sense of the community that we're building here as prospective students within the climate school. So that would be great if you guys can just share with us. New York, phenomenal. Austin, Texas, love Austin. Love the bats under the bridge. Amsterdam, Taiwan, Switzerland. Wow, you guys, this is a diverse group. Jordan, welcome. Hong Kong, New Jersey, Tanzania, excellent. Colombia, the country, of course, wonderful, welcome. So yeah, so I think what's phenomenal about the climate school is we do attract an incredibly diverse learning community. And I think it's a testament just by seeing how quickly our chat box filled up with the diversity of even our prospective students and what that leads to in terms of our current learning environment. But going into Columbia University itself, Columbia is the oldest school in the state of New York. It's the 5th oldest school in the country. We were initially established as King's College, then transitioned to Columbia College, and then eventually became Columbia University. We consider ourselves a blueprint within the United States for major research institutions. When you reference the name Columbia University, you're actually referencing 21 different undergraduate and graduate institutions. The majority of these institutions under Columbia University are at the graduate level, often conferring graduate degrees, many that we are all very, very familiar with today, such as Columbia Business School, Columbia Journalism School, the Law School, the Mailman School of Public Health, the School of Social Work, the list goes on. And the newest school within the Columbia University fabric is Columbia Climate School. It was announced in 2020. It officially launched in 2021. And it's conferred its first degrees this year in 2022. Within Columbia Climate School, we currently offer and confer degrees for a single degree program. That's the MA in Climate and Society, which we will be talking about in great detail today. But one thing I want to just note about the MA in Climate and Society, it's for students to be trained to understand and address the impacts of climate variability and change on society and the environment. We recognize as a professional school now, climate is a subject. Climate's not necessarily a profession, but we've developed a course that's been around since 2005, in fact. So I'll talk a little bit more about the history, or a program, I should say, that gives you the necessary foundation knowledge of climate and the climate crisis to apply that to multiple professions. And certainly when you're going to be hearing a little bit more from kind of Emily and her background and experiences, and you're going to hear from our learning community, where our students ultimately go and what they ultimately do is incredibly diverse. But one thing that they all have in common is this climate core, which I'll be detailing shortly. But you're going to understand and analyze, communicate, and implement climate information. The program is 1 year and interdisciplinary in nature. We'll be talking about what that means to be interdisciplinary, but it's specifically to address the climate crisis. Many of our students are coming to the program with a very specific goal in mind, and therefore they have very specific electives that they're hoping to enroll in. And then some of our students are far more exploratory when they're kind of analyzing or thinking about applying to our program. In terms of the partnerships across Columbia University, so I briefly mentioned the MA in Climate and Society program was established in 2005. So while yes, Columbia Climate School is new, this degree program has existed for many years. We have a very robust alumni community making significant impacts in a variety of roles as it relates to the climate crisis. But what being a student at Columbia University entails, and I think this is a huge benefit, is the idea of all of these connections across the university. And we're going to talk about kind of your ability to cross-register at different schools shortly. But first, I'll mention the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. The MA in Climate and Society program was originally established within the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences prior to its transition to the Climate School. What that looks like for you as a student that would matriculate into this program is resources as it relates to the financial aid office. For example, a lot of our student and academic services are still housed within the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences as well. We also have an extremely close relationship with Columbia Climate School's The Earth Institute. In fact, the Earth Institute is what the Climate School was birthed out of, the Earth Institute being the largest research center at Columbia University. In fact, there are over 700 earth science policymakers, law professionals affiliated with the Earth Institute. We also have a close relationship with Columbia Climate School's International Research Institute for Climate and Society. They're housed at the Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory. And then Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory, which is a independent campus that falls within Columbia Climate School. It's about a 30-minute ride north of the campus, right on the Hudson River. And this Earth Observatory has a long-standing history. It's been around for 70 years. There's about 300 PhD researchers housed there. We have some really fascinating research institutes that many of our climate and society students are specifically going for graduate research assistantships, which I'll talk about in a little bit as well. But I like to highlight that the Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory was the first to develop a computer model to predict El Nino weather events. And then another fun fact about the Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory, they were the first to reveal the ocean's role in triggering abrupt climate change. So there's some really fascinating research centers there that you could certainly explore and participate within as a MA in Climate and Society student. And then if I could just, one more, just noting, if you could go ahead and mute yourselves as well, just as a helpful reminder, just to avoid any background noise, that would be really helpful. And then in terms of our learning community, I always like to note that, Lucia, I'm so sorry for the interruption. If you could mute yourself, that would be great. Thank you. Okay. So in terms of our learning community and students, one thing I like to note is we've seen definitely an evolution within the MA in Climate and Society, and maybe even Emily can speak to her current kind of, or her learning community when she was enrolled in the program. But we have certainly seen an increase in international students this year. We have approximately 36% of our class this past fall, which was 75 students, are international. They represent 16 countries of citizenship. We also have 19 states represented in the program within our domestic community. And something else we're extremely proud of is approximately 15% of our student class self-identify as first-generation college students, or the first students in their families to have attended a college or university. Something else I want to highlight is in the lower right corner, that pie chart as it relates to undergraduate degrees. The program historically attracted a larger proportion of students with earth and natural science backgrounds. And what we've been seeing in the last 2 years is a larger ratio of students with specifically social science backgrounds matriculating to the program. We think that this is related specifically to just the general increased interest in climate change and the climate crisis. And so in terms of our most recent incoming class, about 67% of our students are coming with social science backgrounds. About 22% had natural and earth science backgrounds. I will say that this program is a STEM designated program. So for any international students that are interested in the MA in Climate and Society, the STEM designation allows you to potentially remain in the United States for an additional 2 years on OPT. It allows you to essentially apply for it. So why am I going into that? Well, a STEM designated program would signal that there's a great deal of science involved in the program, and there is, and we'll talk about that within the core. But that being said, you shouldn't feel intimidated if you are a prospective student with a social science or humanities background. We do have a math boot camp course that we provide students in the summer prior to enrolling in the program, especially if you haven't encountered, for example, statistics in many years. So just wanting to make sure that you have that information as well, to not necessarily be intimidated by our program being that it's STEM designated. So I'm now going to touch on specifically the curriculum itself, and then I promise I want to actually bring in Emily to share a little bit more about her experiences within the program. I know it can be a little bit just hearing one voice, and I'm sure you're going to want to hear a little bit more from kind of Emily's experiences in the program. But to give you a broad overview, this program, again, is 1 year, 3 semesters, interdisciplinary. It is a full-time program, and again, just a friendly reminder to please put yourself on mute while logging in. That would be really helpful if you're muted. So in terms of the curriculum, you're looking at the first semester. I promise, guys, I'm going to get right back to it. Just 1 second. Okay. My apologies. I just Okay, it's back to it. Just have to mute, just sometimes it's a little more helpful. So in terms of the 3-semester program, you're looking at uh, dynamics of climate variability and change. That's going to be specifically the first course that students tackle that first semester. And I would say that this is going to be the most classically challenging course. It's heavily relates to physics. And, you know, in terms of what's the content of the course, it's kind of a deep dive in the physical understandings of climate systems. One thing to note is we do have a lot of students that come to this program or interested in this program, and they have that social science background. It's really critical to understand that if you're joining this program, you're going to understand the science behind climate change. And you have to want to understand the science behind climate change if you are going to be an effective professional in the climate space. So this course is going to give you definitely a deep dive understanding as it relates to kind of forecast interpretations. And again, you're going to have an understanding of climate change and the climate crisis from a macro perspective. The next course is quantitative models of climate sensitive natural and human systems. You'll notice that this is a 4-credit-hour course. This course does have a lab component, and this is largely going to be a statistics class. One thing I do want to note, though, in terms of your professional journey in this program and post this program, quantitative models is going to be a key and critical class for you because it's going to be a data course, essentially. You're going to be provided large data sets, interpreting those data sets, and being able to share that information in an easily digestible manner, specifically with decision makers or non-decision makers, individuals who maybe are, you know, or they are decision makers from a different perspective. Maybe they're voters, who knows? But again, this course is critical in terms of interpreting, forgive me, climate data. You are going to be using RXL also in this course. Then you have managing and adapting to climate, and this class specifically, you're going to be thinking about risk assessment, disaster risk management. How do you communicate the climate crisis to different constituents? How do you create urgency around climate change while also obviously not generating panic? So that course, that's one of the major overarching themes of managing and adapting to climate. And then you have 1 electives in that first semester. That is going to be 13 credits. You might ask, Alfred, why would I only be taking 13 credits my first semester? And again, this is a suggested, although strongly suggested kind of schedule. It's because the reason why we want you to have a lighter first semester is because specifically the core courses in your first semester are going to be the most classically challenging. So that's why we recommend only taking 1 elective. And then for the spring semester, you're going to be taking regional climate and climate impacts. That's, you know, whereas dynamics looked at climate from a macro space, regional climate and climate impacts, you're looking at climate change from exactly as the title indicates, from a regional level. Maybe it could be issues relating to water, for example, and climate change. And then the final core course in the spring semester would be applications in climate and society. And this course has a large number of guest speakers. We bring professionals in who are working in the climate space in various industries and sectors. And students really do enjoy this course in terms of planning for the future. And then the final semester, rounding it out, you'll see there are multiple electives that you're able to choose from. And we'll talk about kind of the choose your own adventure elective journey that you'll be exploring. And the final semester, either you will take a summer internship, which is what most students pursue, or a capstone. That's the alternative. And just to note, this is a full-time program. I want to be transparent about that from the top. So this is supposed to be a full-time enrolled program. The one element that I also like to note, though, is while in the fall and spring semester, you should be specifically in the New York City area because you'll be taking courses on campus here at Columbia University. The final semester, you could potentially be anywhere in the country or the world for that matter. We recently had a student, for example, in the last cohort go to Berlin for an internship. We've had students go to Los Angeles and Washington, D.C., so you don't have to necessarily be in specifically the tri-state area. Before I move on, though, if I could ask Emily, could you share any kind of insight or tidbits about your experiences within the Corps? Is there any course that you particularly enjoyed while enrolled in the program, or you found especially illuminating or helpful?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say, I think just Alfred kind of hit it right, was that the first semester is the most challenging. So I do suggest taking 13 credits, just because if you haven't, especially because for the quantitative class, you're going to be coding. And if you haven't coded, it does tend to take a little bit more time, which is why it's 4 credits. But all of the classes are truly incredible. And the one that I would say still sticks with me is the managing and adapting to climate. We talked a lot about the difference between like mitigation and adaptation, and that's something that is still really relevant to my job. And we kind of, I pull from that knowledge definitely on a daily basis, which has been super useful. And then as far as electives, I think it's really helpful to, if you're thinking about this program, to start looking at electives now. You can look online, and I think it's just helpful to kind of decide how you want to curate the program. Like, because there are a lot of elective options, you can kind of build your own classes, build your own courses, and kind of figure out how you want your how you want your semesters to look. And the first elective I took was actually refugee and forced migration studies. And so I kind of, branched out from the climate world a little bit. And because I wanted to focus on like forced migration and climate refugees, so I tried to intertwine those two and took my own course that was in a different department. And the other thing I would say just about electives, if you do find an elective you want to take and you do decide to come to the program, like really stick with it. And even if they don't seem like they have room right away, I think if you just really want something enough and you ask the professor and you kind of create those relationships, then it really helps to get into the class. And then also it's great to build that community, because electives are a way to meet people outside of the program and get to know people in different departments, which is really helpful and useful, and definitely good moving forward as you're looking for jobs and looking for internships. And then the summer semester is also just a great opportunity to kind of figure out where you want to jump off from. And there's so many wonderful opportunities, and I can talk more about what I did later. I don't know if we're coming back to the summer program, but yeah.
Oh, Emily, we're coming back to Emily, I
Okay.
promise. So
Okay.
trust me,
Yeah.
we're gonna be hearing more from Emily. So thank you for that overview of the Corps. Another thing, just an X factor, I don't even know if I should be mentioning it, but I'll mention it anyways. Not to encourage kind of an aggressive enrollment plan, but because we have a flat tuition rate, you could potentially enroll in up to 20 credit hours per semester. For the fall and spring in particular. But one thing I just want to emphasize is exactly what, thank you, Emily, for just double confirming for me. That first semester is quite challenging. But if you wanted to take additional electives, we would then suggest taking them in the spring semester potentially, if that's something that you were specifically interested in. In terms of, oh, and there's the 34 credits, just a 34 credit total. Again, emphasizing that's what you need. And then electives. So something I always note as it relates to our electives is just the sheer flexibility within that curriculum. And I mentioned earlier, kind of from the top, is that the idea that you might be interested in this program with a very specific goal in mind. You might have a very specific set of, let's say, environmental science courses you wanted to specifically explore. Oh, that's interesting. Somebody was able to annotate on the screen. I never noticed that before. So anyways, but one thing I like to note is that, and again, if I could just remind everybody to please mute themselves, that would be great. As they're joining the session. But one thing I like to note is the idea of to choose your own adventure. So you're able to cross-register in this program at any graduate school at Columbia University, so long as they allow cross-registration and have the necessary prerequisites for the given course you hope to cross-register in. So our students take, just as it's listed here, they have taken courses at the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, certainly, Columbia Law School, the Mailman School of Public Health, the School of Engineering, the School of Professional Studies. We have two really popular sustainability programs that are closely affiliated with Columbia Climate School, specifically sustainability management and sustainability science. Many of our students take sustainability management courses housed within, again, the School of Professional Studies. We've had students take urban planning courses at GSAP. So at public health courses. So it's a really diverse kind of portfolio of classes you could potentially put together for yourself, depending on what your interests are. And then something else really exciting to share is Columbia Climate School itself is creating additional electives. So this is just an example listing of electives our students have taken. The first three bullets are the ones that we offered last year, specifically strategic communications for climate change and disaster management, and then social impact, business society, and the natural environment. We are also offering this year a climate justice course that we're extremely excited about. But just to kind of piggyback off of what Emily was sharing is in terms of her electives, you can see all of these different types of courses our students have successfully taken as a part of their elective journey. So you might be coming to this program with a very specific goal in mind, and then you might be more exploratory. And if either one of those options, I think we can definitely meet those needs. I do want to just be transparent in terms of the cross-registration. I mentioned that the school has to allow cross-registration and specifically the courses also. So for example, SEPA, just going back one screen, SEPA does have many courses that our students are interested in. SEPA is very transparent. That's the School of International and Public Affairs. They're very transparent with courses that you're allowed to cross-register in and courses you're not allowed to cross-register in. So I just want to note that. On our website, we have a link to a site called Virgil, where you're able to research different electives that are being offered this coming semester, and that can give you kind of an idea of what you could potentially enroll in. Emily, I know that you mentioned refugee and forced migration studies as an elective. Is there any other elective that stood out to you? Was there any other professional schools that you might have cross-registered in, or even transparently, was there any anxiety around cross-registration and the journey that was?
Yeah, I did also take climate change law with Professor Gerard. A lot of us did, and I think it tends to be a popular elective, especially because you're just taking a class like with other law students, which is really, a great opportunity to kind of hear from them and connect with them. And that class I would highly recommend. It definitely was stressful as well. Yeah, I would say cross-registering. There is times where you're like not exactly sure what to take and not exactly sure what's available. But I would just recommend in those circumstances, like talking to your peers, talking to the people in your cohort. Those were the people that were most useful to kind of find classes and hear about what other people found. It's kind of like a searching, you can search throughout the like registry and see what you can find. And so it's helpful to talk to other people about what they're taking and kind of get ideas. But I would highly recommend climate change law. It was a really, really valuable course. And I know that everyone in my cohort who took it, we still talk about it, and we still talk about the professor and what he's up to these days. So I think it's definitely a good course.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that. And then for the summer internship, yes, and oh yeah, go ahead. You know what? We usually reserve questions for the end, but please feel free. Go ahead and ask.
I'm so sorry to bother you. I just had a quick question. You were talking about how you can cross-register. Does this program, I'm a Columbia GS student right now, a senior.
Oh, at the School of General Studies.
Yes. And
I used to work at the School of General Studies. I love GS students. Used to be in admission, so that's phenomenal.
Yes, and I'm also doing sustainable development as my major, so I'm a senior right now.
So Sylvia's wonderful too. I'm sure you know
Yes.
Sylvia well. Yep, excellent.
Yes. So my question is the process for existing student the same as the process that is for everybody?
That's a great question. Yes. So the application process, whether
You don't have to
are
answer now. You don't have to answer now. I just needed to throw it out there before I forget. That's all.
No
I'm sorry.
worries. Yeah, no, my pleasure. And Evans, if you could go ahead and mute yourself, that would be really helpful too. I'm hearing a little bit of feedback on your side. So the question relates to, as an undergraduate student at Columbia, would the application process, is that correct, be the same applying to this program? And the answer is yes, it would be the same application process. And then was that helpful? Did that answer the question? Was it relating to the application process, or was it relating to cross-registration?
No, just that it had like extra requirements on it. So it wasn't like the, the 5-year program, and this program doesn't seem to have the same requirements. So I was wondering if this also is a part of the 5-year program. So can I just continue?
It's a good question. It's so interestingly, it's not a part of the 5-year program because this program is strictly 1 year. So you would simply apply to this program during your senior year and start the program the year after you graduate. Does
So
that make
it is
sense?
after the year. Okay.
You got it. You
Okay.
got it. Excellent
All right.
question.
Thank
though.
you. Thank
No
you.
problem. My pleasure. And then in terms of summer internships, so I like to just stress that in your final semester, you're able again to take those concepts that you learn and apply them to an organization. You can go anywhere in the country specifically for this experience, or the world, as I mentioned earlier. The program has always offered the summer internship. The consulting capstone was offered starting in 2020 as a result of the pandemic, and we got such positive feedback from it that the program decided to continue offering either an internship option or a capstone project to work on. In terms of the internships, our students have gone to a variety of organizations to perform their internships, nonprofits, government agencies, NGOs. I will say that a huge benefit of transitioning from Graduate School of Arts and Sciences to Columbia Climate School is now we have a dedicated career development officer exclusively working with MA in Climate and Society students, working with them from semester 1 and specifically thinking through their internship hunt, and of course after that their professional roles. So Gerald is the career development officer. You're able to schedule one-on-one appointments with them. They will help you from anything from, negotiations as it relates to a job offer, to networking. They put together a nice resume book of all of the incoming class and send it out to all of their contacts. And Gerald has had a very long-standing career in career development and placement, so you're in very good hands there. Emily, if I could just bring it back to you, and if you could share with me a little bit about, you mentioned that your internship ultimately resulted in your full-time offer in your career right now. Could you talk a little bit about that process?
Yeah, I definitely can. It was it was a little bit of a wild process because when we were all looking for our internships during my year, it was right as the pandemic was kind of hitting the fan. So it was kind of a little bit of a mixture of things because originally everyone was going to have internships, but a lot of companies and organizations stopped offering internships due to the pandemic. So there was a mixture of people our year doing capstones and internships. So I started out doing a capstone project with the USDA Climate Hub, and I was working for them as a research assistant on like drought adaptation projects.
I didn't know that. Side comment. Yeah, because that's great. Okay, so you kind of did. Okay, no, I shouldn't interrupt.
No, it's okay. Yeah. So I ended up doing two things because I had still applied for a bunch of internships. And so but I hadn't heard back from any of them. So I started doing the capstone project, but then I got the internship in the end. So I ended up doing both actually. I continued to work for the USDA Climate Hub we were just creating basically articles on best practices for just drought adaptation in the Southwest US. So I interviewed a lot of ranchers and farmers and scientists and would write up what they were working on essentially. And I wanted to continue with that because I ended up publishing some of those articles with them. So I finished with them. And then I also got an internship with C40 Cities. And I started on there. It was actually, I heard about the internship through Columbia. I heard about it through Cynthia, who was our supervisor at the time. And so I started working on their communications and events team. And I was on that team for about 6 months. And then it's really easy with them once you're internal to like apply for other jobs. So basically the whole time I was an intern, I had opportunities to apply for any openings that came up. And so I applied for a different job within the organization, and I moved to what is called our Climate Solutions and Networks team. And then I moved again, and now I work on our food and waste team. So I work specifically on policy on waste with cities. So I just help them with like solid waste initiatives, so composting and recycling and those kinds of things. So it kind of was, a natural growth within the organization, which has been really great. But it did start out with the internship. So I definitely, think getting the internship and putting yourself out there right afterwards is a really great way to find a job and you move your career forward.
That's great, Emily. And Emily, I noticed a lot of people joined us a little after our introduction. Could you share with us I know we're pivoting now something a little different, but what was your undergraduate background? Could you share a little bit about that just so people know your undergraduate major at the, prior to matriculating?
Sure. Yeah, I can definitely share. So I started at Penn State for my undergrad. I was studying global and international studies, and I had a focus on human rights. And then I was also taking French studies. So I had a dual major, and then I was also minoring in Spanish. So that's kind of my background, just more humanities than anything.
That's great. That's great. So you came to so I just want to reiterate to a lot of the students joining us today that don't have that STEM background. Emily, you classically came to the program with more of a social science humanities background, and you were able to fully embrace it, so to speak. And
Exactly, definitely. Yeah, I think, and it was great. I really loved the program for that reason, because I wanted to pivot more towards science and I hadn't had that background. So it was great to kind of dive head in. And I think it's, you can do it. I think it's definitely possible for people who are coming from humanities and social sciences to excel
Awesome.
at the program.
Awesome. Thanks, Emily. So then in terms of the capstone workshop, this again, as we mentioned earlier, was something that was developed specifically as a result of the pandemic, but we got such positive feedback that now every year we offer it as an option. And there's no right or wrong path. I will say I had a student in one of my last 2 sessions, she shared, her name's Jen. Jen just graduated. She actually did a capstone, kind of similar to what Emily described, did a capstone as well as an internship. I don't know if I necessarily recommend that. That feels like a lot of work at the same time, but there is a great deal of flexibility during this final semester. And this is just some examples of organizations that we've partnered with for capstones and kind of what they were looking for. So the first example was Kenya Red Cross Society, assessing the climate contribution to the desert locust invasion in Kenya. So again, if anybody here is interested in seeing more examples of capstones, I'm happy to furnish that for you as well. And now I'm going to just transition to talk a little bit more about professional development. Obviously, this is a significant commitment for you as a, taking your time, taking this full year that is going to be academically challenging. There's a significant investment in this program. So what can you expect in terms of the professional development? As I mentioned earlier, you do have a dedicated career placement officer. Gerald hosts a variety of not only one-on-one sessions, but employer info sessions. We also have the All Ivy Environmental and Sustainable Development Career Fair. I want to just give this a huge plug. It's been happening for over 20 years, always in the spring, usually around February, March timeframe. Typically, nearly 100 employers come to the Columbia University campus. It was held virtually the last few years as a result of the pandemic, but a couple, nearly 100 employers. And we invite students from across the Ivy League to come to this event. It is open to both graduate and undergraduate students, and we hold a variety of kind of seminars during the session. Maybe you're interested in working in sustainability in a specific industry, so we'll bring business leaders from that industry to speak on those opportunities. We also have an exclusive job list and alumni directory as part of Columbia Climate School's Earth Institute. So I mentioned briefly that while we are the only program that confers degrees within Columbia Climate School, we also have several affiliate programs that closely align with us, including the sustainability programs within the School of Professional Studies, as well as an MPA program, an environmental science and policy, that is within the School of International and Public Affairs. You are all a part of an alumni directory within Columbia Climate School's Earth Institute. So you would have access to that directory and access to a specific job listserv that's exclusive to those students within those programs. We also have Earth Internship Institute internship programs, and we offer sustainability skills seminars every other month. We might do a seminar on becoming a sustainability consultant or LEED certification, for example. So there's a variety of opportunities. And I see Rahim has their hand raised. Rahim, would you, full disclosure, I'm just throwing, this is how casual I am. I usually just do the chat box, but if anybody wants to go ahead and ask the question via video, you're more than welcome to. So if Rahim, do you want to ask a question?
Yes, I just wanted to basically ask, what did sustainability skills seminar entail?
Say it again. I'm so sorry.
I was just basically asking, what does the sustainability skills seminar entail?
It's usually once every 6 months, and it's a speaking event. There's no credits or anything. So it's literally just you going to an event and hearing more about an aspect within sustainability sector. So we've held one, for example, on sustainability consulting. We've held one on how to obtain LEED certification. So again, it's something that's just a part of the professional development menu, so to speak.
Got it. Thank you so much.
No, my pleasure. Thanks, Rahim, for joining. Okay, so in terms of our MA Climate and Society, and you know what, I need to update this. Look at me. I'm revealing all my cards. I didn't need to say that, but I decided to say it. I need to update this somewhat because interestingly, we've been seeing an increased number of students entering the private sector within our alumni community. So first and foremost, the program's been around, as I mentioned, since 2005. About 30% of our students do go on to academia. We classify those as students that go on to either PhD programs, MBA programs, law school. Again, if you're getting an additional credential within 3 years, we classify that as 30%. We also have then 40% going into NGOs, about 15% in the public sector, and 15% in the private sector. But I will say the ratio within the private sector is increasing. Even when we think about just how quickly things are changing, for example, in the recent passing of the Inflation Reduction Act, the fact that over $300 billion was earmarked for climate change and energy related initiatives, that is going to open up many opportunities, both not only at the federal government, but remember, the private sector then has to also step up. So that requires them to start thinking through their strategies and making sure that they're bringing in climate professionals as it relates to the evolution in policy that's occurring. So we have had, for example, our most recent cohort, the cohort that just graduated this year, I should say, 3 students go on to Boston Consulting Group, specifically in consulting roles as it relates to climate and sustainability. And we have been seeing an increased interest in that private sector, so to speak, area of the bucket. And then this just gives you a little brief kind of taste of where our students go on, and you can see it's incredibly diverse. So what I like to stress is the MA in Climate and Society program, we're giving you that climate core. We're giving you the necessary touchstones as it relates to science, as it relates to communication, as it relates to the regional impacts of climate change. We're giving you that kind of foundation where then you can take that and apply that to multiple industries, to multiple sectors, and that kind of fleshes out as you're really looking at our different job titles of our alumni. So whether it's working at an organization like an Apple, or many of our students work in local cities, local governments. That's where a lot of the work, I know that one of my colleagues, Cynthia Thompson, always says is the idea of the cities doing all the heavy lifting. So you can see from this list, a lot of students go on to very, very diverse sectors.
So far.
And Justin, did you have a question?
I copy pasted inside the.
Oh, Justin, did you have a question?
I've only written around 100.
Oh, okay. All right. No question there, just the audio. So in terms of the, before I move on though, let me just go back. So we spoke about the program the alumni, the learning community. I'm now going to transition to financial aid and the application process. But before I go on from there, is there any questions specifically for Emily that anybody would like to ask? Because I feel like you're getting a chance to ask an alum a question is something that's very, very helpful and beneficial as a prospective student. Is there any question that you might want to ask before we talk about financial aid and the application process for Emily? Yes, Teresa, please.
Hi, it's not necessarily for Emily, but just like in general of what we were just talking about. I'm looking at more sustainability programs because that is what like I hope to do as a career. But this program really intrigued me because it is interdisciplinary. And I was just wondering if either of you had any like, do you find that this program like has any benefits that doing a sustainability program doesn't have?
That's a great question. I don't know, Emily, do you want to take, I don't know, Emily, if you have perspective specifically on that, meaning this program versus, I certainly have some talking points I can give Teresa because we have a great sustainability program within our portfolio that I can give some high level distinctions. But Emily, do you have anything that you would want to like add to that as, you know, I know that's a very specific question.
No, it's okay. I think what I would add is just that the program itself does a really good job of just communication in general when it comes to climate and sustainability. And I think that's probably what's key here, and that what you're getting from this program is just the ability to like kind of converse with not just like with the business world, yes, but also with individuals, with like, you know, government officials. So like, it's kind of a wide range of who you're communicating with. And I think that really does lend itself well to sustainability management. And I know that I personally have a few friends who have come from this program and are now working specifically in consulting, but have done a lot with sustainability. And I think they would say the same thing, just the aspect of getting this communication and getting this foundation that the program gives is really beneficial. But maybe Alfred can add more.
No, that was brilliant. Thank you, Emily. I
Yeah, thank
appreciate
you
that.
thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks, Teresa, for asking. And I do want to encourage you, you know, feel free. We're going to have Teresa, are you in the New York area? If you are, I really recommend coming to our open house event. We're going to be hosting a graduate open house on October 28th. An email will be going out later this week about it, just as a friendly reminder. The graduate open house is going to be including both our program as well as our sustainability programs, as well as the MP in environmental science and policy. There's going to be a faculty panel, a current student alumni panel, and then we're going to have degree breakout sessions. So if you're able to make that event, it's Friday, October 28th on campus in Morningside Heights. I definitely encourage you to come. If you can't make the event, not a problem. You can always attend these individual virtual info sessions and get a strong flavor for each program.
Yeah, I'm already registered to come to that. I'm from
Good.
Connecticut, so it's just a short train ride.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, Teresa, I'm going to see you in person. That's great. That's great. I'm so glad you're coming. And then we got a couple other raised hands. If we want Bridget, does Bridget want to ask a question?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Hey,
So
Bridget,
thank you.
welcome.
Thank you. Emily, so you've talked a little bit about like what courses you liked. I just wanted to ask about the social aspects of this program in terms of your experience with other students in the master's program, as well as with faculty. What was that social aspect of this year like for you?
It was great. I mean, we had a cohort of 40, so you really get to know everyone super well. I think one thing I will recommend that I didn't do very well was kind of disconnecting sometimes from homework to make sure you do pay attention to that social aspect, because you do meet so many wonderful people. And at least with my cohort, we're all still really involved in each other's lives and hearing about what each other is doing. And people tend to send, we have like a WhatsApp that people still send, you know, hey, I'm going to this event, or here's a job opportunity if anyone needs a job. So I think it's really great that we've been able to cultivate that community and continue it on. And so I think that this program does that really well. And as far as the professors go, they're amazing, and they all offer office hours. So that's a really good way to kind of connect with your professors and continue to have that relationship with them. And I still talk to multiple of my professors as well. So it's really, I think the community is really wonderful, and you will get to meet a lot of people, and it's just about taking the time. And I highly recommend going to the office hours, even if you don't think you have like a burning question. It's just a good way to talk to them and get to hear about the amazing work they do, because they're all extremely brilliant. So it's great.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking, Bridget. Thanks, Emily, for the perspective. And then there might have been one more hand raised. Was there another hand raised that I might have missed? I apologize if I did. So we're going to go ahead and move on now to, oh, I see, one moment. That's a great question. Mahmoud just asked, does your undergraduate degree determine what electives you can register for? Potentially, and we'll talk about, you know what, let me reserve for Q&A. Sorry, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So we'll go through the financial aid and application process, and then we will address that. The undergraduate degree could potentially dictate your electives if you are interested in electives that are, for example, require a great deal of prerequisites. So, you know, if you wanted to take, you know, a very complicated kind of environmental engineering course, but you majored in sociology, that's probably not going to be feasible, let's say. But I will say that, you know, a lot of students don't encounter that issue because oftentimes the electives they're looking to take, they do have somewhat of an academic background in. So now I want to just address financial aid, and I'm going to just address it from two distinct buckets. The first being fellowships, and then I will address it from federal and private loans. So first and foremost, applying to this program, you are automatically considered for climate and society fellowships. Climate and society fellowships are largely merit-based, but one thing I want to encourage and state is that if you are interested in any fellowships, you should absolutely apply by our January 15th, 2023 deadline. I know quite a few of you, I think, joining me today have already started an application. That's wonderful. If you haven't started an application, I recommend logging into our system and just opening an account today. Just get your feet wet, get started. You'll then get on our radar, start getting communication from us, getting some outreach. We're going to be doing a application workshop in mid-November. I don't have the exact date for right now, but like kind of a workshop to help you in terms of addressing all your questions, burning questions as it relates to the application process. So stay tuned for that, but I definitely recommend getting started on an application. In terms of climate and society fellowships, the award typically ranges between $10,000 and upwards of $30,000 for the fellowship. And again, you're automatically considered for it upon submission of your admissions application. We have another fellowship that this is the second year of its existence, extremely generous. It's called the Diamonstein Spielvogel Fellowship. We give 2 of these fellowships out each year. And this does require a separate admissions application. However, the application is located in your, or forgive me, a separate application. However, the application itself is located in your application portal. So when you're filling out the admissions application, they will ask, are you interested in the Diamonstein Spielvogel Fellowship? You will select yes, and then you will have access to the application for the Diamonstein Spielvogel Fellowship as well on your checklist. You can only fill out that application, though, if you submit everything by the January 15th deadline. So submitting your admissions application by the January 15th deadline. So Diamonstein Spielvogel, a phenomenal opportunity. It covers all of your tuition, and you also get a living stipend. And there are 2 of these opportunities. So I'm going to talk about that in more detail shortly, but just wanting to highlight that. We also offer graduate research assistantships. In the 2 most recent years, about 30% of our students perform graduate research assistantships, or GRAs. These are $6,000 in compensation for work in the fall and spring semester. And the GRA positions are a wonderful opportunity if you are interested in research, if you're even interested in potentially pursuing PhD programs. I recommend reviewing our GRA position options. GRA applications open up in kind of the end of August, and you hear back about whether or not you receive a GRA position toward the end of September, early October. The GRA positions are funded by the MA in Climate and Society program, but the hiring process is entirely up to the given research department. Many of our students go up to Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory for their GRA positions, just throwing that out there. And then we also have some external fellowships. that I always encourage you to review. The Graduate School of Arts and Sciences has a great kind of listserv of external fellowships. Some of them are highly related to the study of climate, so I definitely recommend reviewing that information and start applying to external fellowships. The final bucket I want to address is federal and private loans. Many of our students do access private loans and federal loans to help fund this program. The Graduate School of Arts and Sciences is our financial aid office. So we're still very closely working with them in terms of financial aid packaging. So I just want to address that and highlight that element. In terms of the Diamonstein Spielvogel Fellowship, I mentioned that they are 2 full fellowships, including tuition fees and living expenses. Separate fellowship application. Eligibility, we are looking for candidates with strong academic track records, experience living or working in diverse communities, and then additional consideration will be given to applicants with demonstrated financial need and applicants who are US residents. So I just want to note that as well. So again, we are interested in candidates who have experience living or working in diverse communities, who want to address the climate crisis from that perspective. And then additional consideration will be given to candidates with demonstrated financial need and applicants who are US residents. So in terms of applying to the MA in Climate and Society, guess what? This slide is now slightly dated. The application is open now. You can start your application today. You can go to our website on the MA in Climate and Society admissions section and begin an application. As a part of your admissions application, you will upload your resume. We require 2 letters of reference. One must be academic if you've been enrolled in a university within the last 5 years. If you have not been enrolled in a university within the last 5 years, they can absolutely be 2 professional recommendation letters. So I just want to emphasize that for those of you who have been outside of a school environment for quite some time, that's absolutely fine. You can use 2 professional recommendation letters. We also require that you upload all of your unofficial transcripts to the application portal. And then for those of you whose English is not your first language, and if English was not the sole language of instruction in your undergraduate university, we will require an English test as a part of your application. You will either submit a TOEFL, IELTS, or Duolingo English test. So any one of those 3 will be accepted. For the TOEFL, we need a minimum score of a 100 on the internet-based test. For the IELTS, a minimum score of a 7.5. And for Duolingo, a minimum score of 135. All of that is on our website as well. So I just want to note that and emphasize. The final element of the application process is the statement of purpose. And I'm going to have an entire slide dedicated to that. So I'll be talking about that in detail. Our application process is absolutely holistic in nature. Our admissions committee is deeply interested in understanding kind of your goals and ambitions. Why are you specifically interested in working in the climate space? What do you hope to accomplish post-MA Climate and Society? And why is this program specifically the best fit for you to accomplish your goals? The statement of purpose, when you think of your admissions application, think of it as a painting, and the statement of purpose is kind of framing out that entire painting. You're addressing all of these questions. You're helping the admissions committee really understand your fit for the program. And for the statement of purpose, we do have a prompt now that's we're interested in understanding, share with us your key experiences that have contributed to your commitment to work on climate change issues. What are your academic and professional goals, and what knowledge and skills are you hoping to develop through enrollment in Columbia Climate School? And why is enrollment in Columbia in Climate and Society critical in helping you achieve your goals? And then the final thing is, and forgive me because I know it's long. That's a long prompt, so to speak. We're not looking for bulleted answers. We're looking for a nice statement of purpose in your own authentic voice. But a key that I think is going to separate many students, applicants, is we also are interested in understanding which of the core courses you're most looking forward to enrolling in. So we talked about dynamics of climate variability. We talked about quantitative models. Is it the data analysis element? Is that what you're specifically excited about? Is it maybe specifically the communications element, you know, or managing and adapting to climate change. Which course are you most excited to tackle, so to speak? So I would recommend kind of embedding that as well in your statement of purpose. In terms of application deadlines, the priority deadline is January 15th, 2023. Decisions will be released in March. It's definitely recommended for any of you that are interested in the Climate and Society Fellowship consideration. And it's also the deadline for, you know, access to the Diamonstein-Spielvogel application. So again, everybody, I'm just going to throw it out there. Anybody joining me today, you should absolutely take advantage of the January 15th deadline. There's still plenty of time to submit an application, so definitely take advantage of that. And then the final deadline is going to be March 1st, 2023. And again, my name is Alfred Ayub, and you're more than welcome to email me at admissions@columbia.edu. I'll even throw out there my this is my personal email. So if you didn't want the general inbox, but you wanted a little bit more access, that's aa3240@columbia.edu. And now I am going to stop the share screen, forgive me, and take a look really quick at the chats and see if there's anything else I should be noting. And you know, forgive me, Emily only committed to 1 hour, and I don't want to take any more of her time. Is there any other? And I just wanted to say thank you so much, Emily, for just sharing your time with us and sharing your perspective and your experiences and just your voice. So thank you so much for joining. Before Emily has to log off, is there any other questions specific that you would want Emily to address? Okay, any statement of purpose tips from Emily?
Yeah, I think I can probably speak to that. It's been a while now for me since I wrote my statement of purpose, but I think it's just really important to talk about like specifically what you're passionate about. So like with me, I specifically talked about wanting to focus on climate refugees and forced migration, which is not now what I'm doing, but I do think it's important to kind of talk about where your passions come from and why you're motivated to do the program. And at the time, that was really what motivated me to come and study. So I think it's really important just to like make sure you harp on that and express that. And that's, I mean, I don't know exactly what the admissions team is looking for, but that's what I wrote in mine. And I think it probably helped a little bit just to kind of explain why I wanted to be at the program. But yeah, I do actually have to run. I'm so sorry. I have to get back to work. But
Thank you so much,
having me.
Emily. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'll be staying on for Q&A, but thank you, Emily.
Yeah. And good
It was
luck to you
wonderful.
all. I hope you all come to Columbia. So
Thanks,
enjoy.
Emily.
Bye.
Take care. Yeah, and I'll stay on everybody for some, just making sure we get Q&A going. So in terms of, I did see a question about somebody joining us today with a robust career in higher education in Bangladesh, it sounds like. I do want to stress the question relates to if an English test score is necessary. The English score is only necessary if your undergraduate degree's language of instruction was not in English. So if you were taught in a language other than English, then yes, it's necessary. And then Troy has a question. Go for it, Troy.
Yes, I was curious about the application fees and if there was any type of setup in regards of applying to multiple programs. Do you have to pay for multiple applications?
Such a good and exceptional question. So Troy, I'm unable to waive application fees for other programs at other schools. We do offer application fee waivers though at Columbia Climate School. So it isn't a $95 application fee, but we do offer 2 pathways for fee waivers. One would be if you have financial need, you know, if you have, or forgive me, financial hardship. And then the second is affiliation with different programs. So United States military veterans are automatically waived of an application fee at Columbia Climate School. Also members of the Peace Corps, Teach for America, City Year. There's a very large list of organizations that if you are affiliated with or participated in, you would get a fee waiver. And there is a formal application in the admissions application. Did that answer the question, Troy?
It did, thank you.
No problem. Let's see here. So this was, I really appreciate everybody for coming to the session. Okay, great. Another question came in from a Fulbright grantee. All their materials will be submitted through Fulbright, and I really want to have an advantage in fellowships. It is possible, Nadine, it is possible to still be considered for fellowships after the January 15th deadline, but you're more than welcome to, if you, and by the way, if you are a Fulbright and directly working with a Fulbright agent, they can fill out the application. I would recommend contacting them at this stage and communicating with them if they're able to submit the by the January 15th deadline. But that's a great question, and you can communicate directly with me. Just throwing that out there. Any other questions? Any questions that were submitted earlier that I did not get to, and I do forgive me for that. So typically, another question that came up was relating to internships. Students are typically begin their internship in May and conclude the internship in August, although I don't see why the internship couldn't potentially go on a little further. Your degree is not conferred until October. So you start the program in September, and your degree, let's say September of 2023, and your degree will be conferred in October of 2024. And then I see a hand raised from Rai, RY. How can I help?
Hey, Alfred. So I read about other programs closely associated with this, with School of Climate, like the sustainability science. So I'm trying to understand, since like both programs seem to be have like similar setups. What is the uniqueness of this program, Climate Society, and what kind of advantage it gets from being under the school, the climate school?
That's such a great question, Rai. Well, so number one thing I would like to know as it relates to all of our programs is, you know, the reality is this is a Venn diagram, so to speak, of programs, meaning there is overlap, especially as it relates to degree outcomes and what students ultimately pursue post-degree. But the programs are entirely different in terms of structure and flavor and even learning communities, I would argue. The sustainability science program is 36 credit hours. So you're going to say, well, that's only a 2 credit hour distinction. There's only 2 required courses that every sustainability science student has to take in that program. So it's extremely, extremely flexible. Whereas the MA in Climate and Society program, I would also argue we're extremely flexible, especially as it relates to the elective journey. But we do have a climate core. We do have specific courses that we want every single climate professional to have undertaken prior to going out into the workforce and doing the work, so to speak. So I would say that the structure of our program is very different. Sustainability science does have some very interesting courses embedded within it that you could potentially take, like, for example, GIS. We don't currently offer GIS, although you could potentially pursue it as an elective. But they have just 2 required courses in their curriculum: sustainability science in their first semester and a capstone in the final semester. And then it's up to you to fill out the rest of your courses through specifically content areas that they've developed, 5 different content areas. It's a dynamic program. It's a very intimate learning community. You can also pursue that program part-time, whereas our program is full-time only. I hope that helps answer it, Rai. And Rai, are you based in New York area? Where are you?
Yeah, I am in New York City, and I already signed up for the open house next Friday.
Excellent. Okay, so you're coming to the right event. I'm thrilled. That's great.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? And feel free to raise your hand. Forgive me if you asked the question earlier in the chat and I did not see it. Any other question? Yes, Yan Yao, how can I help?
Hello.
Hi.
I'm sorry, I just joined in the middle, so I'm afraid I missed something.
Don't worry, I'm recording this, so you're going to get the recording.
Yeah, I have a few questions. And the first one is, how many international students you have every
That's a great
year?
question. Yep, last year there was only 18% international, but that was as a result of the pandemic, I think, and just so many different visa restrictions and the challenges of studying in the United States during that period. This year, in September of 2022, 36% of our students are international. So it was a cohort of 75 students joining us.
Oh, okay. And the second one is, as I'm from design background, I already graduated for few years. Now I work in a planning institute in China. I'm quite interested about the climate change issues, but I don't want, just wonder, I don't have the background about anything about climate
And that's
change.
that's a great question as well. About 67% of the students that joined our most recent cohort had social science backgrounds. So they did not have earth science or natural science backgrounds. And in fact, Emily had shared her background. She had like a degree from Penn State in international and global affairs, I believe is what she said. So you don't have to have a earth or natural science background. I will say this program is challenging. There is going to be some challenging science courses as it relates to climate embedded within the program. There is going to be some physics and statistics involved, but we do offer a math boot camp in the summer prior to matriculating to the program. And I just want to emphasize that you would not be alone joining this program not having a climate background.
Okay, thank you. And the final one, about finding a job in the US, I want to ask how many percentage of the graduates can find a job there?
So I don't have the exact placement rate and the immediacy, but what I can do definitely, Yanyao, is share with you a full listing of alumni and where they're currently working, what their internship was going back to 2005. And that can certainly give you an idea of what the outcomes look like, kind of what industries and what job titles they've eventually pursued.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That's
No
all.
problem. And so a couple other questions came in. One is from Inez, is admissions rolling? Yes, it is on a rolling basis. And are international students eligible for fellowships? Yes, they are eligible, absolutely, especially for the Climate and Society Fellowship. So I strongly encourage you to apply by the January 15th deadline. Juliet then asked, what kind of visa does an international student need if they want to do an internship in the US? The F1 visa. You will be joining the program on an F1 visa, and you will be working with our International Student Scholars Office, ISSO. So they would be the ones to work with you on the visa process, and we've had plenty of international students join this program. And then I'd love to, absolutely, I'll make sure, if anybody wants that email I referenced, aa3240@columbia.edu, that is my email. And then one other thing, I just want to really, I should have had this in fact available before, but I want to make sure everybody has my one-on-one appointment calendar. So one second, I'm just going to copy and paste the appointment calendar specifically in the chat box, just in case any of you joining today would be interested in speaking with me one-on-one as it relates to your circumstances. There is the one-on-one appointment calendar. So feel free to take advantage of that. All right, well, I want to be respectful of everybody's time. We ran a little bit over, but I'm so thrilled everybody who was able to join us did join us. And let's see here. Oh, there is one raised hand. Oh no, Yanya, we already addressed. So if anybody else has any additional questions, please feel free to either email me or schedule that one-on-one appointment. I'd love to connect with you to further discuss the program. And I hope everybody has a great rest of the day. And oh, start your admissions application, everybody. Go ahead and get started if you feel like this has been a good fit for you, or if you feel this program could potentially really help you, take your career to the next level. And of course, working in the climate space, this would be, I think a great fit. So I hope you guys do decide to join and apply. Take care, everybody, and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.